Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back to a continuation of the reading of the book Thinkers of the East. And we are now on the second chapter of the book, which is entitled Ordinary. So I will let my virtual assistant, as usual, to do the reading first, and then I'll get back to you with my reflection about what has been read.
Ordinary. Rashid Satarazad received a party of intending students whose heads were filled with his wonders and the excitement of arriving so close to the source of the teaching. He said, "Let one of you be your spokesman, and let him tell me of your feelings." One of the visitors stepped forward and said, "We are stimulated by the presence, and eager for the knowledge, and elevated by tradition." Rashid said, "That is the truthful account of your feelings. Because you all loved the exciting, I shall have to give you the banal. You are to learn through life. And life, the key to knowledge, is the most banal of all things. You will have to undergo experiences which will make you understand life, not make it more interesting." One of those present exclaimed, "That man whom you asked to represent us speaks for himself, and yet we must all be judged by his behavior." Rashid said, "He may think that he speaks for all of you. You may think that he speaks only for himself, but it is I who have agreed that he speaks for all. Are you already disputing my authority? To do so shows that you crave excitement, and verifies the words which you are trying to refute."
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. For today's reflection, I will be giving some thoughts, sharing some thoughts on a story entitled Ordinary, which is about Rashid Sitarazad, and then how he was approached by a group of students who intended to be his students. So in this story, you find that actually it is a lesson for us in how to actually approach a teacher, how to regard a teacher, how to go for a class with a certain teacher. All right. And one of the things that has often happened to many of us is that very often when we hear of somebody of great repute, all right, and there's a class going on being conducted by this person, and we get all excited because of the reputation of the teacher. Unfortunately, sometimes when we think about it, all right, this reputation will tend to bring unwanted people, or perhaps more accurately, people who should not be there. So these people, would want to attend such a session with a great teacher. They're usually also unclear about why they're there. All they know is that they heard some exciting things, some interesting things, and they imagine themselves being able to be, uh, benefit from such a session with such a great teacher. Sometimes we go to such places where there are great teachers giving lectures and so on because we just want to perhaps, I don't know, rub shoulders with the teachers. And maybe it's because we're on some kind of ego trip, thinking that perhaps we've progressed far enough to be able to actually benefit from the discourses that's being done by the men. Okay, so this kind of excitement is something which we all should be very wary about. We have to be very careful. And usually, let's face it, we get excited when we hear about great teachers coming somewhere in the neighborhood and so on, and that we are able to attend and so on. Some, of course, will say it's for the barakah and so on. But I think at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, are we going to learn anything from such a session? Are we going to benefit fully from it, from such a great man? See, we tend to think of like we are able to learn from such great men, but we forget that sometimes, right, the discourses of such great men is only for people who have achieved a certain level of ability or a certain level of understanding or a certain level of knowledge. So it is not for everyone. So, and because of this is why Rashid Sitaraza then actually asked them, okay, to ask one of them, one of this group of students who have approached him with all that excitement in their heads, all right, and to tell them how they feel about about being there, about coming for the session, and ask one of them to be the spokesman, all right, to talk about their feelings at that moment. So one of them stepped forward, and of course that person will assume that everyone was there with the same intention as he. And this is again quite normal because very often when you go in a group, you go with your friends and so on, right? You get the same excitement and you think that we are all going for the same reason. So one of them actually stepped forward thinking perhaps that way. So it's not unusual, all right? So it is when he is asked, then he started off by actually praising the teacher. And this is something of a no-no, right? Because in the first place, you were not even a student yet. You're not even a student yet. So for you to start with praising the teacher is only based on hearsay. All right, it's based on repetition that is passed down from people who have perhaps been with him, or maybe even second-hand news or third-hand news, and so on. So that's hearsay, and that is, and to praise somebody higher than you are is also not quite proper adab. Okay, by adab, I mean that you do not know your place in relation to that person that you're talking to. Right? To praise someone means you're able to assess that person. Yet you're a student. So if you're a student, how is it that you're able to assess the teacher? If you can assess the teacher, then you should not be a student. You should be the teacher of the teacher, even. Right? So, and the teacher doesn't need that praise from you. Why would he require that praise from you? He's teaching because he's teaching. He just he knows that it is a duty of his and that he's supposed to teach to certain groups of people, certain potential students, and so on. You don't need to praise him. Okay, what are we trying to do when we praise him? And this is where you are reminded of the hadith of the Prophet with regards to when somebody praises you, right? Should put mud in his mouth. All right. That is to stop people from doing such a thing. One, of course, is so that it doesn't get to your head. The one who is being praised doesn't let it get to his head. But of course, in this case, we assume that the teacher is of such greatness, perhaps, then that would not happen. But what is more important is that by you praising, you think you can get something out from the teacher, right? A favor of some sort, right? When you don't deserve it. So that is very what we call inappropriate, for a student to actually praise the teachers. So that is something we have to remind ourselves. When we want to go for a session like that, don't go overboard praising the teachers. Don't go after the class or the discourse and all that and start praising the teacher, to everybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? Start praising the teacher and so on. That's not how it should be done. If you want to show appreciation of the teacher, then what you should do is to try and live up to the teachings that the teacher has conveyed to you. That's the most important. All right, we're still in a state of great excitement. That means we still want to, we imagine ourselves being able to receive all these things. We imagine that with our praise, the teacher would be taken in by nice things that we have to say about him and so on. Totally inappropriate. So because of this is why the teacher, Rashid Sitaraza, then said that, okay, since you all crave excitement, then I'll give you the most banal, all right, the most boring thing, okay, and that is to actually to teach them about life. Life is the most boring thing on earth. Nothing exciting there happens in life. Okay, most of the time you go about doing your humdrum things, right? Go and walk here and there, buy things, right? Cook food, eat, sleep, all right, and so on. Go about with your family, all right? Nothing exciting. Don't ever believe that life is always exciting. You read about a lot of exciting things only in the newspaper. Okay, but the newspaper is a very sad reflection of life because they only report exciting things. Okay, who would want to report the boring things in the newspaper? And the point is that he's also, I think the teacher Rashid Sitarazad is trying to make here, it's also that if you get excited by things, you have adopted the wrong approach to actually wanting to study. Because after all, when you want to study from such a teacher, you are actually trying to study to be a better person, how to live your life as a better person. But what you want to do is to get excitement. And when you think of it, in my view, when you think about excitement, then you are thinking about studying it with a very from a detached point of view, and then you just want to observe, all right, and then hopefully something exciting, something will happen, and then that would make it interesting. It would pique your interest. So that is like trying to study Islam, all right, as if Islam is like goldfishes in a bowl, right, swimming around. And most of the time, you study goldfishes in a bowl. It's pretty boring. They just swim around. You put them some food, and they will eat it. That's about it. All right. So, but for somebody who's observing goldfishes in a bowl, you don't want to see that. You want to see maybe the goldfish do something extraordinary. That's not going to happen. Because of this, right, when we approach studying something, like the point of view of actually like studying something in a goldfish bowl, then we crave for excitement. Okay? We crave for excitement, and this excitement is what that actually distracts us from actually the more important things, which are the daily boring humdrum things that you have to go through in your life. When Rashid Sitaraza uh, said that, made that announcement, actually that is what all of you should do after only one spokesman has spoken, then of course the others who were watching as bystanders initially quite happy to let somebody do the talking, which is quite often, right? When you're in a group, okay, when somebody important asks you, you always wish that somebody else would speak for you. Okay? But when that person is reprimanded, then you are quick also to want to wash your hands of whatever that person has said. Okay? So we are quick to deny, especially after a reprimand. But then I think if that person had got some praise from the teacher, we'll be happy to be associated with it. All right. So that's our thoughts. That's how we think. So when that person was reprimanded and Rashid Sitarazan basically said that they are all of the same mold, then they challenged them, begin to question the teacher. Why is it that that based on what one person said, the whole lot of them has been judged? So basically, they say this is unfair. All right. So but you see, this is the attitude that we carry even when we want to go for a class. That is, we are able to tell the teacher whether this is good, this is fair, this is not fair, this is whatever, this is what we need, and so on. This is what the attitude that we take. Okay. And today we've gone even one step further. Very often, today, because most classes are of a commercial nature where you pay for it, right? The student is always right because the student is a customer and the customer is always right. Okay. And that is why you see, at the end of many courses that we attend, right, today, in the modern situation, you find that at the end of the course, right, the students are asked to assess the quality of the teaching of the teacher. This would never happen in a traditional setting. This would never happen. It is just bad adab. That means, in other words, it shows that you do not know your place. And organizers of such things also do not know, right, the importance of the teacher. The teacher is just a conveyor of information. That's about it, nothing else. I think in America they have a saying, if you can't, then teach. What is interesting here, more interesting perhaps, is that the teacher here is already being questioned in terms of his authority. And here, by authority, it doesn't mean like the person just above you and then you just enforce your rules. No, it doesn't mean that. But authority here means if you want to attend the class, it means that you are trusting your education in the hands of the teacher. You have to trust the teacher. So that trusting the teacher means trusting the judgment of the teacher. So if you are already questioning the judgment of the teacher about you and your friends and so on, then actually you are not acting like a student. And for that reason, you should not be actually going any further in terms of your studies with him. In this case, you shouldn't even start. So for that reason, when we are going to learn from anybody, we should learn how to actually put our full trust in that teacher. If we can't do that and we're still thinking about whether to trust or not to trust, it shows that we don't trust. And therefore, we should not go on with that teacher. So I hope this reflection has helped us to think about what a student-teacher relationship means. And we have to undo a lot of the conditioning that we have experienced through our uh, exposure, going through different processes of learning in the modern context. So that modern context is something which is actually very contrary to what is experienced in the traditional context, and especially in the traditional context also, we're talking about molding men, okay, molding the person, and it's not just about just inputting information. So I hope you have enjoyed the section of this video, and not only that, I hope you've picked up something useful, and perhaps you can even reflect a bit more about it. So if you do have some thoughts about it, please do share in the comment section below, and also please do subscribe. And I look forward to meeting you again in another video.